Hi, I'm Jesper. In this video I'm making a project for a client who wants a new table for their kitchen. They want something new, inspired by the sea, the sun and something a little Viking-ish. The client had watched my videos and said, just do as you like. If you say that to me, I'll give you something new, something Viking-ish. I'm thinking of using wood and epoxy.
But hey Jesper, Vikings didn't have epoxy, did they?
No, but I'll have to come back to that one later. When my customer said, just do as you like, I thought they also meant take as long as you like, but that was not the case, as I got a text shortly after saying they invited guests for a party in 3 weeks, and they would like the table by then. That's why I decided to skip some steps in making the mold and just put a tarpaulin down in my chipboard frame. That should work just fine. Then I'm just going crazy with some wood. This is ash wood, something I literally have dry in my backyard. Oak would have been the Viking choice, but ash is great. Perhaps the new age Viking choice. Let me know what you think. While I'm designing the tabletop, I'm thinking I can save some time and buy a table base online. And I think this one will be perfect for the future tabletop. At this point I'm not sure what the tabletop is going to look like, but hey, they said just do as you like, so I'll just follow my inspiration and see where the wind, the sea and the wood is taking me. For the creative part, this is the best I could come up with. A cookie in the middle to represent the sun, and for practical reasons some pieces of wood for a frame all around. Perhaps some rafters to represent sunbeams. Ooh, I like the symmetrical look of this. Perhaps I should just fill the spaces up with some wood offcuts from my cookie coffee table. But after a little playing around, I decided to make a more simple pattern.
G'day Jesper. Mate, there are rumours going around that you're not using pallet wood anymore. I thought you were the Danish pallet Viking.
True, I have been using a lot of pallet wood. The next part of the build is the epoxy part, and my epoxy here is from Epodx. With this type it should be possible to cast up to 5 cm thick layers in one pour. But I'll just begin with dropping 2 buckets of resin into my form here and see if it holds up. One of these measuring cups holds 5 liters of resin, and I honestly have no idea how many buckets I'll have to drop in here to fill it up. Make a quick guess and remember it a little later. I have often talked to people making epoxy resin projects, and they ask why the epoxy is not curing after even a week, and it's probably due to bad mixing. My tips for this a little bit later. After dropping 2 buckets and waiting 2 days, the epoxy is pretty hard, and I decide to mix and drop 2 more buckets into the table. I waited a few days and mixed 2 more buckets of resin, and now the running total is 30 liters of epoxy resin into this tabletop. The best tip on mixing epoxy is mixing it a lot longer than you think, and then pour it over into another container and mix it again before you pour it into your project. Most epoxy mistakes come from it not being mixed properly, mixed in the wrong ratio, or the wrong epoxy type for the project. While it cures, I'm checking in on the table base I ordered online. It's not sent yet, so I'm getting a little worried. After a week of curing, it's time to disassemble my mold. I had some epoxy leaking on one side of the mold, and I stopped it with silicone caulk and tape. What in reality happened is that I have epoxied the chipboard mold down to my work surface. So when I knock it off, the top layer of the form ply decided to leave with the mold. So I'm getting really worried if I can get the tabletop separated from my workbench. But luckily the tarpaulin is non-stick, so I had no issues getting the tabletop separated from my workbench, and the tarpaulin just slided off the bottom of the tabletop. My biggest issue right now is the tabletop is really heavy and impossible to lift one person. So I decided to start the flattening with my trusted, cheap, no-brand electric planer. I posted some pictures of the build on my Instagram, but I shouldn't have done that.
So it's true, you're not using pallet wood anymore. Do you realise you'll be getting the whole of the pallet wood community on your neck now, mate?
For the next step, I'm driving up to Creative Woodworking in Portland, Oregon, to have them flatten my project on their industrial white belt sander thicknesser. Oh, sorry, for a moment I thought I was Cam from Blacktail Studio. For the next step, I set up my world-famous flattening jig I made from pipe clamps and a couple of barn door sliding things. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a shop with a big thicknesser around here, so I'll just do it the hard and dirty way. This flattening job produced 3 boxes of shavings I'll need to get to the recycling station for proper disposal. The first pour leaked a little and created this edge on 2 sides of the table. Should be pretty easy to get off. I've removed the rest of the epoxy on the sides with a metal polishing disc on my angle grinder. I don't want sharp corners on the table, so I cut off those corners with a circular saw. I'm still waiting for the table base to show up, and now I'm getting really worried. I really like the floating design on the sides of the table, and the epoxy bond to the wood is obviously very strong. But I would like to add a little insurance policy on the bond, so I decided to add some inlays. Bow tie inlays with sharp corners seems to be very popular, but I don't think it matches this table with all the round shapes, so I settled on this round shape of inlay. There's probably some clever way to create this shape with a bandsaw and a router template.
Yes.
But I'm not that clever guy.
No, you're not.
On the other hand, I'm the guy with the shape of origin, and I just cut out the inlays with that. I also need to cut out the shape in the table. My tabletop is almost done, but the table base I ordered is nowhere to be seen. The company apparently didn't ship it yet, and I'm seriously running out of time, so I'll need to consider the alternatives. One alternative is to drive down to my local hardware store and buy some metal hairpin legs. But then I asked the judges, and the other alternative is to simply make the table base from the same type of wood as the tabletop. And I have these logs sitting in my wood stock. The judges seemed quite pleased with that option, so I'll give it a try. First I'll need to cut the logs to rough length, and then I have to find a way to mill it on my bandsaw. I screw it to a straight piece of wood and run it through the bandsaw. and shortly after I have 4 live edge table legs. Live edge table legs. I like the sound of that. The plan is to make a star base, so first I guess I'll have to make 2 X's. Don't worry, right now I'm as confused as you, but it'll make sense in a little while. After the 2 X legs are glued up and dried overnight, I'll need to cut them to size. And in this case, I'll need them to be exactly 70 centimeters in height. There are probably fancy ways to calculate where to cut, but I do anything I can to avoid math, so I just draw 2 lines on my workbench. The top line is 70 meters from the edge, and the middle line is the center of the legs, 35 centimeters from the top and the bottom. I place the legs on top of my lines and mark where to cut. Easy peasy. Now I need to figure out how to mount one X to the other. And the solution I came up with is this. So, 2 bad things happened. One is that I covered the tabletop and the base in Rubio Monaco Pure. That's not one of the bad things, but the SD card with the footage of it went bonkers, corrupt, unrecoverable. The other thing is that I got a call from my client with some really bad news. I just had to digest the news a bit, so I took the finished table down to the sea. So the message from my client is they can no longer afford to pay for the table. This is due to the crazy raises in costs of energy in Europe caused by the war in Ukraine. So if you are interested in buying this table, I have now made it for sale. Check the link in the description. While drinking a bit of Viking milk, I got a message.
Sorry to interrupt, mate. I think there is a crowd of angry pallet wood makers heading to your house right now. No, he's only joking. He'll be back.
I'll be back.